Good evening, I'm Cynthia Smith. Raytown reacts to the criminal indictment of their former police chief. And we'll tell you where Missouri's worst dioxin problem is.
And we'll give you an in-depth look at OPEC, fighting for survival. I'm Stacy Smith. All this and more is next on Action 4 Nightcast.
Nutribel from Lancôme makes beautiful things happen to your skin. A luxurious fluid, clinically proven to nourish and moisturize 24 hours a day, Nutribel renews elasticity. Your skin will thrive on it. Lancôme, Paris.
Elegance 83 at the Jones Store Company.
Listen. You're listening to Taste. The incredibly crispy, delicious taste of new Tato's potato chips. Once kids hear the taste of Tato's, they can't resist trying them. Tato's brand potato chips, a taste so crispy, so delicious, you can actually hear it. Hungry for more? Listen to the taste of Tato's, new from Frito-Lay.
If you're looking for a herbicide that'll give you the grass and pigweed control you want in Milo with excellent crop safety, then take a look at this. Lasso herbicide is now labeled for Milo, that's treated with screen seed protectant. Now, Lasso, the leading herbicide in corn and soybeans, can give you the same broad-spectrum weed control in Milo with the crop safety you need. Start this season with Lasso. Now it's for Milo, too.
Action 4 Nightcast is next. In 30 minutes, Johnny welcomes Rex Smith to The Tonight Show here on TV4.
This is Action 4 Nightcast, Kansas City's most up-to-the-minute 10 o'clock news.
Good evening. Raytown's longtime former police chief is back in hot water tonight. Marion Beeler was indicted late today on charges of official misconduct and stealing while in office. A grand jury had failed to indict Beeler 18 months ago, but as Bob Thill now tells us, new evidence led to this latest decision. Bob?
Well, Cynthia, the investigation was reopened a little over 3 months ago, and it was found that in addition to about $23,000 that was allegedly taken then returned by Beeler, that another $6,000 hasn't been accounted for. The 11-count indictment charges that between November 1979 and November 1980, Beeler laundered traffic fine money by substituting checks due to the city of Raytown for cash, which he then allegedly used for other purposes. He's also charged with stealing a typewriter. After the indictment was handed down, Beeler emerged from the Jackson County courtroom to a swarm of waiting reporters.
No comment at this time.
Beeler's attorney also didn't have much to say, but seemed a bit puzzled by the grand jury's findings.
My understanding is that most of these are what a previous grand jury found a no true bill on, but I'm not sure until I look into it a little bit closer.
Beeler's successor and current chief, Ron Leslie, initiated the audit that turned up the missing funds.
I think this clearly shows that I wasn't making anything up. The problems did exist.
Raytown Mayor Doug Hall, meanwhile, characterized the situation as a cloud that keeps hanging over the city's head. Raytown, he says, deserves better than that. And the county prosecutor, in a live interview on Action 4 News at 6, told reporter Jan Smith he has a strong case.
We have to back up all of our allegations, I think, is the testimony of current employees of the city of Raytown, former employees of the city of Raytown, as well as a mass of documentation.
Now, Reader says the case should go to trial in about 4 to 6 months, with Beeler, if convicted, facing several years behind bars. Stacy?
Thank you, Bob. Missouri Senator John Danforth and the chief whistleblower in the Environmental Protection Agency are at odds tonight. Hugh Kaufman has been telling congressmen of misdoings within the agency. And now Kaufman has charged that Senator Danforth released an EPA document 2 days before he was reelected back in November. Kaufman is charging that Danforth's press release said the EPA had, quote, this magic technique to make dioxin disappear. Well, Kaufman says that is not true and that could have influenced some votes. He also has charged that Danforth was told when he was Missouri Attorney General where possible dioxin sites in Missouri were located. Danforth has denied that charge. And while Times Beach has been getting all of the headlines, Missouri's worst dioxin problem has been largely ignored by the EPA. The state's biggest dioxin hazard is in Verona.
What lies along the roads in Times Beach came from here, a chemical plant in Verona, Missouri. The original manufacturer is gone now. Syntex Agribusiness is left to clean up the mess. Dioxin waste from a hexachlorophene process had been secretly dumped in many places near Verona, among them this farm site, which underwent some cleanup by EPA in 1980. The soil was dug up, but today it still remains stored in barrels at the site at levels up to 2 million parts per billion, or more than 6,000 times the levels at Times Beach. On the chemical company site itself in the middle of Verona, outdoor tanks today contain more than 10,000 gallons of dioxin-contaminated liquid at levels up to 500 parts per billion. A recent fire near the plant caused more than the usual level of concern. In burial sites along the nearby Spring River, preliminary tests show dioxin at 62 parts per billion. Former chemical company workers say they fear that may mean rumors of hundreds of barrels buried deep underground there may be true. And the Spring River itself, which flows to Oklahoma, has dioxin in its sediment and in its fish. One dairy farmer whose cows drink from the river thinks the dioxin contamination is the reason his cows keep dying and losing calves. EPA officials say their tests show that is not the cause, but the farmer lives less than a quarter mile from the chemical plant. Southwest Missourians have said little about their dioxin poisoning. Some don't believe dioxin is all that harmful. Others refuse to talk on camera because they fear media publicity will ruin their community. There are no Superfund monies allocated for Southwest Missouri. EPA has said it is satisfied with its action here, though many tests remain to be done and many questions remain to be answered. Erin Hayes in Verona, Missouri for NBC News.
It won't be long now, and Times Beach, Missouri will be a ghost town. The mayor tonight says 95% of the residents plan to accept the government's offer to buy their property. Once they relocate and the dioxin is cleaned up, the government plans to turn it into a park.
For the first time in 6 months, food prices in the Kansas City area registered an increase. The 1.2% climb was mainly caused by higher prices for pork and soft drinks. And they were smiling and perhaps drinking something other than soft drinks at the White House tonight over the latest economic figures. Nationally, the consumer price index rose only 0.2%. And one of the reasons was the increase was so small was the world oil glut. Gasoline prices actually went down 3.3% in January.
Well, the continuing fall of oil prices has made for some strange bedfellows. Philip Till tells us tonight about OPEC's latest effort to stop the plummet.
The meeting took place in this luxury hotel in Paris. It was an extraordinary gathering. Oil ministers from OPEC and a non-OPEC country getting together. Once enemies, today these men needed each other. With producing countries desperate for revenue, non-OPEC producers have been selling cut-price oil, and OPEC states have been stealing each other's customers by selling below the official price. The Algerian minister said he is optimistic the two sides can get together to stop prices from falling any further. But that's as far as it went. The meeting ended with no agreement in sight. Philip Till, NBC News.
So, OPEC is in big trouble tonight, but just how much trouble? In our special weekly business report, Mike Jensen examines what lies ahead for the oil cartel.
OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is fighting for survival. Until about 1.5 years ago, OPEC was considered one of the most powerful cartels the world had ever seen. By getting 13 oil-producing nations from the Middle East, Africa, Latin America to act together, OPEC was able to engineer a staggering increase in the world price of oil. In 1973, crude oil sold for $3 a barrel. Today, the official OPEC price is $34 a barrel. That rise in prices was a major reason for the runaway inflation that hit almost every industrialized country in the world and helped set off a worldwide recession. But that recession and the extraordinarily high price of oil laid the groundwork for OPEC's present difficulties. People began conserving, and so did business. Detroit started making more fuel-efficient cars. The recession further reduced demand for oil. So a world glut developed, and that put downward pressure on prices. OPEC members began fighting for each other's customers, slashing prices under the table. There was and is the threat of an all-out price war. That threat became more real a week ago when the British, who are not OPEC members, reduced the price of their oil by $3 a barrel. Then Nigeria, which is an OPEC member, broke ranks with the organization and cut its price officially by $5.50 a barrel. The Arab members of OPEC quickly got together in Saudi Arabia to try to contain the damage. They'll try to stabilize the price at about $30. Within the next week or 10 days, we'll know how successful they are. Mike Jensen, NBC News.
Coming up next on Action 4 Nightcast, Kansas City Latchkey Kids.
And we'll tell you about the local latchkey programs.
When you stay at a big, fancy hotel, you pay for a lot more than your room. You don't need a fancy hotel to get a big, comfortable room. You can get one at Howard Johnson's, along with a big bathroom, an oversized bed, and even some special care in our executive section. All at a sensible price. At Howard Johnson's, we don't care about the fanfare. We care about the things that count most.
This is Vanette Carroll's Your Arms Too Short to Box with God.
Live at the Midland now through Sunday. Don't miss superstar Patti LaBelle in the Broadway hit